The Manufacturer podcasts are sponsored by Sage, helping manufacturers perform at their best. For more information, visit sage.com/perform.
So welcome to the third episode of the Manufacturers Happy Hour podcast, brought to you by the events team here at your favourite industry publication for all things manufacturing. So I'm James Smith. I am, actually, what am I? I used to be the events director at the Manufacturer, but I'm just pivoting to a new role. I've been so successful that I've been asked to leave that role as events director. So I'm currently moving over to the publishing side of the business, but they can't drag me away before I sort of contribute to this, perhaps my swan song episode for the events team. And today I'm joined by Bethany. Introduce yourself, Bethany.
Hi, I'm Bethany. I'm the marketing executive at the Manufacturer. And I've had a slight pivot myself as well, because obviously we're doing a lot more online events and online products in general. So I'm sort of more focusing on the delivery for the marketing of digital products.
I tell you what, there's more pivoting going on at the Manufacturer than there is at the Royal Opera House. So it's all very impressive. And back by popular demand, the standout star of our very first episode of the series, Ashley. Welcome back, Ashley. You need very little introduction, but perhaps but why not introduce yourself anyway?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm still laughing at James's little joke about pivoting, but I'll try and put on my serious face. Yes, welcome everyone. I am Ashley Alton. I'm the conference production manager at the Manufacturer. I'm not pivoting anywhere at the moment. I'm still looking after all of our events and essentially researching and making sure we have all the key topics covered during the year, which are important to you as manufacturers, and within those topics, all the important issues. And then moving on from that, making sure we've got as many discussion leaders and speakers from all sectors of the manufacturing industry involved in the events to make the events as topical and as up to date, and more importantly, as interesting and beneficial to everyone that attends.
Great stuff. So obviously, I think the world has changed quite dramatically since our last podcast episode. Obviously, COVID-19 has gathered pace around the world and has completely upended the apple cart for most businesses here in the UK, and certainly manufacturers have been acutely affected. We at the Manufacturer, as a media business, have also been dramatically affected, and we are all working from our homes at the moment, like most people in the UK. Bethany, whereabouts in your apartment are you currently sat? How have you arranged yourself today in terms of your...
Well, obviously, I'm in my bedroom, just to sort of leave my partner having access to the living room. So I have a portable desk that I bought off Amazon, so that I can freely roll my desk between the rooms, because obviously it is an apartment, don't have any stairs. So yeah, I kind of change where I place myself on a daily basis, but I figured the bedroom would be the best place for recording today. Yeah, so I've got my whole setup.
Is that where you normally work? Do you have a sort of defined space in your apartment that you say, well, now I'm in the zone, this is where I'll be for the next 8 hours or so as I work on all things the Manufacturer?
So I normally put the desk by the window, because obviously then I can see all the dogs that walk past, all the various interesting sights throughout the day. That's obviously entertaining. And as well, I've discovered this playlist on Spotify. It's called something like Jazz Vibes or something like that, and it's like jazz interpretations of hip hop music. And I tell you now, it's the best concentrating music in the entire world, because it's got no lyrics. It's literally just calm sounds. So that is my prime, sitting by the window with that playlist on.
Interesting. Well, we're possibly racing ahead here, but certainly one of the sort of, I suppose, the work hacks that I would recommend is trying to sort of create a sense of separation from the rest of your domestic life. So I've got myself a little corner of the lounge, which is very much my in the zone workspace, and obviously when I'm there, I feel like I'm ready and prepared for work, and when I step away from it, it sort of maximizes the sense that although I'm still at home, so I'm within easy reach of my laptop, it's easier for me to resist the temptation of getting drawn back into my email and just sort of start getting sort of sucked into work after working hours, because I can step away from it. So that's been useful to me. And one of the things which I've seen other people say is that where potentially they're sharing their home space with a number of people, with kids, they often use music as a sort of to sort of reinforce that sense of boundary by having a particular playlist perhaps that they use for work. And it just sort of helps them sort of avoid one of the biggest challenges I think of us all working from home, which is distraction. Obviously, whether it's the food in the fridge, whether it's the people you live with, whether it's all the things that you have at home which you might otherwise enjoy and engage with. I think it's having that sense of separation is important, and I think that working from home is really sort of around that point home to me. Ashley, how about you? What's your setup?
Yes, yes, thank you, James. I agree with a lot of those points. I'm fortunate enough that I live in a little village in North Hertfordshire called Little Wymondley, which no one would have heard of, because the nearest town to us, which is called Hitchin, not many people have heard of either. But we have a conservatory attached to the side of our house, which is a really fabulous environment to work in, because we have a garden, a back garden, a side garden, and a front garden. So the only issue with it is that being a conservatory, and when the sun's out all day, the temperature can go up to over 30 degrees inside it. So I also utilize our dining room in the front of the house as a backup office when it gets too hot, or alternatively, it gets too cold in the morning. But I'm fortunate enough that I've been working remotely for off and on for about 7 years now, because I worked for a period of time before joining the manufacturer. I worked as a freelance conference production manager for a number of big international conference companies, producing events in UK, Europe and US, and working remotely, some of which were based in the head offices were based in the US or based in Europe. And with obviously the wonders of modern communication technology with VoIP and VPNs, etc., I was able to run conferences in other countries, as I'm doing now, of course, from other countries. So I'm very used to working remotely. I'm very used to working from home. As you've quite rightly pointed out, it's critically important to try, if you can, depending on the size of your abode, to have a separate place for you to work in, which is yours, that you can get in there, focus, you're not interrupted. Discipline is very, very important. Waking up at the same time, coming down, starting work. The only danger of working from home, I find, as opposed to working in office, is I tend to work a lot more hours.
Yeah.
So, when I presently, up until the coronavirus sadly hit us, I worked from home 2 days a week, worked in the office 3 days. I have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, get the train at 7 into London, finish work at 5, maybe lucky to get home at 7:30. When I'm at home, I start working at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then some days I'll work through to 8 o'clock at night. And so there has to be a discipline that you need to stop for a particular reason. I'm also not very good at having lunch breaks. So I'll grab a sandwich at 1 o'clock, make a sandwich, eat it, and straight back to work again.
Yeah.
I very rarely take a lunch break. I work right through, anything between 8 and 12 hours a day. And that's not too healthy. So you have to be disciplined about taking a break during the day. Taking breaks from looking at the computer is very important. I was reading on the BBC website this morning, they were saying how important it is to take breaks from looking at a VDU. It's not good for your eyes. And also in the evening, of course, very important to finish at a certain time if you can, and be disciplined about it, and go for a walk, go for a run, do some exercise. Very important for mental well-being, physical well-being, and you'll feel recharged and ready to start the next day. So those would be my tips for remote working.
I can tell you, an old hand at this remote working lot, some very good tips there. I think that one of the interesting things is that whereas all of us to varying degree have done remote working, but the novel thing now is that everyone is remote working simultaneously, and that whereas perhaps in the past as a remote worker you would dial into a meeting but most of the other participants would be physically present in a conference room somewhere, and that there was always the chance that you would be missing out on decision making conversations because you weren't physically present. Now that none of us are physically present, I think that's sort of evens it out a lot more and has implications for sort of how people communicate and have meetings together.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Obviously, I'm not used to working from home personally. It's never been the sort of situation for me because I suppose because I'm quite early on in my career. For me, I think it's been quite a strange adjustment because it's not something I'm used to at all. Especially not on a weekly basis. I feel like for the first 3 weeks, I'd say I was a bit rubbish at it. Not as in like terms of productivity, but in terms of just sort of feeling like I was feeling my best, sort of eating well and going out for walks. I think for like the first 3 weeks, I was just almost feeling like it was so temporary. I almost wasn't motivated to try and make the best out of the situation. And then I think just something sort of clicked, and I thought, you know what, I want to wake up 2 hours before I'm due to start for the day, just to have some more time to myself, rather than I've got work at 9, I'll get up at 8. Just getting up at 7 has made the world of difference, and actually using my lunch hour to go on a walk. I think you read all the tips online and you just think, oh yeah, eat better, exercise more, get up earlier. Like they're so obvious that you almost think, well, that's not really useful to me because I already know that stuff. But the difference between sort of when you apply it and when you think about it is just so huge, because it does actually make a difference, but you've kind of got to see the value in it for it to actually sort of make a difference, if that makes sense. Music has made such a massive difference, and I think for me, listening to music that's got no lyrics in makes a big difference, because when I know a song, that's almost like a distraction because I know the song. Whereas if it's just literally just serving as like a background noise, it really does help. So I think that's the fact that it is such a culture shock, I suppose, from what I'm used to versus the sort of situation I'm in now. Having so much time in my apartment, it's not something I've ever had.
Will this amazing playlist that you recommend be in the show notes for today's episode?
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone would enjoy it. Definitely.
I'm looking forward to trying it out today. But I think it's interesting that you say that the first 3 weeks you were sort of not quite sure what approach was going to work best for you. I think you're not like everyone is in the same situation, because as I was kind of trying to say earlier, even though some people have worked remotely previously, it's never been the case that the entire organization has been working remotely simultaneously, and so that just throws up new challenges for how teams work together and collaborate, which probably we've never had to deal with before. So there's been a very, very steep learning curve for everyone, and I think that frankly I think we can all take a pat on the back, and our listeners can too. I think we've all learned a lot in a very short space of time, and we've basically been making it work. I mean, business has, as much as it can do, been moving forwards for most companies. And certainly, I think that one of the things I've tried to do is my usual 1.5 hour commute into work and out to get every day. I've tried to, certainly for the morning commute, basically say, okay, well, 45 minutes before I get to work and log on, I'm just going to go for my walk, my state sanctioned daily walk, and listen to a podcast. And it might be a professional related podcast or listen to some music, but basically have that same sense of commuting time leading into work, where I can begin to sort of process what it is I want to get out of my day, sort of unstructured, informal cycle through I suppose the rocks that I need to negotiate during the course of the working day, and then the optional extras which I hope to fit in around those rocks, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's one thing I've actually considered, is just slotting in that 1 hour walk in the morning. I think because I'm not naturally a morning person, I don't think about all the things I could fit in before I start working, but actually I do think that would probably work out really nicely. It's so peaceful in the morning, especially here, like there's no one around, obviously. So like that, between that 8 and 9 before I start, definitely could use that time for having a walk around and finding a sort of peaceful mindset before starting the day.
So have we found, we've touched upon it already, but I mean, I think if I was sort of reviewing the past few weeks and what the biggest challenges for me have been, it would be, I suppose, maintaining focus on work and avoiding distractions of, family members walking around and, all the usual distractions I have at home. Managing the work-life balance. I think you made the point, Ashley, at the beginning, that there's a real danger of just, waking up, logging in, working, snatching a sandwich, but not really having much of a lunch break. And it can be all too easy to sort of actually deliver too much output in a day. I think that one of the things people might have worried about is that with distributed teams, would there be the same level of output and productivity from people over the course of a working day? I think actually we've all probably been in danger of doing too much more than we've been in danger of doing too little. And obviously, whilst in the short term it can be great to have that sort of spurt of productivity and activity, it's just not sustainable for that sort of mental well-being, for that sort of work-life balance. You can't just put in 12-hour days continuously unless you're obviously a .com entrepreneur. And I just think it's important that managing that work-life balance is a key thing that we've been having to focus on here at the manufacturer. But what have been some of the big challenges for you beyond that work-life balance, which you've already referred to?
Well, as I say, just to reiterate that, that's critically important, and I can be guilty of working much longer. I'm in a job where there's always something to do. Producing conferences. I'm working presently on 4 different events at the moment. I'm always going to be receiving emails from speakers from the events asking questions. There's always follow-up to do. So there's always plenty to do. But yes, it's critically important that you get that work-life balance right, or you're going to burn yourself out. And it's important that you work, as Bethany was explained at the beginning, getting up a bit earlier at 7 o'clock, the same as myself, allowing yourself time to prepare for the day, to go for a walk, whatever, very, very important. And then set yourself goals during the day. You're going to start work at 9 o'clock, you're going to work through to 1 o'clock, give yourself a break. It's very important to break. Don't do what I do, just have a sandwich and carry on. We are all allowed some exercise once a day, and whether you do that in the morning, lunchtime, or the evening, it's very, very important. Don't just switch off and throw yourself in front of the television for a few hours and then hit the sack. It's quite interesting going back to my father. My father had his own insurance brokerage, his own business, which he inherited from his father. And that was, before computers and IT, and all of his clients were in these huge files. And he'd come home in the evening from the office, have his dinner, and then he'd sit with a bottle of wine and a whole pile of files, dictating letters for his secretary to type up the next day, which would go on to 10 o'clock at night. And after seeing that, I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, that's not the situation I want to find myself in later in life. I think that was a message. And it's important to basically, to avoid that situation, to obviously have goals during the day, to try not to be distracted. It can be very easy to be distracted. So you've set a goal, you're going to finish X by such and such a time, and then you'll receive text messages and WhatsApp messages and emails from various people within the group. They're not aware of your situation because, of course, they're not sitting with you. They can't see what you're doing. They can't see that you're active doing something, and there could be a tendency to oh God, that's really urgent, I've got to work on that now, and then everything gets delayed. And so planning is critically important, and sticking to that plan and prioritizing your day, prioritizing your goals for the day, not allowing yourself to be distracted unless it really is very urgent. And the other thing about working from home is you might tend to want to do things which are creative and more interesting, that things are a bit more laborious and tedious to do. Those sort of issues are very, very important. I mean, the other wonderful thing now is that just to sort of give Microsoft an endorsement, they're not paying me, but I think Microsoft Teams is a really excellent. I mean, I really liked it when we started using it. It's a fabulous tool. It's not intrusive. You're able to communicate with whoever's sending you the message. Someone sent me a message and I just quickly typed back, I'm on a call, I'll get back to you in 15 minutes, bang. It's a very simple way of communicating. It's a really excellent tool. I absolutely love it. Zoom is also an excellent tool. Microsoft Teams, of course, has meetings in it as well, so you can actually speak to each other and see each other in a meeting. Zoom is an excellent platform for meetings, which we've been using a lot. So although we're not actually physically sitting next to each other, I think it's important to use that. And there's an interesting article I read, I saw last week about, why do people, I mean, I was the same, why do people not use the video part of Zoom or Microsoft Teams? It tends to be a bit, oh, no, I don't want to use the video. I don't want people to see me. I've got this shirt on and my hair's all sticking up and I haven't shaved for 5 days. That's me personally, of course. But people are conscious of it. And it's a question of forcing yourself into it, because it does make a difference. There's a lot of people that are taking a while to get used to the fact that they're on video and people can see them in their own home environment. I highly recommend to everyone, over that hurdle. It makes a complete difference to a much more positive meeting.
I can't agree more, frankly. Obviously, I don't have the same issue that you have with having to comb your hair and stuff. So, but certainly, because it's so easy to turn the video camera on, I'm finding that I'm actually having a lot more sort of eye-to-eye contact with the people I speak to across the course of the week, not just internally but externally. And actually, I'm actually, in a weird way, despite everyone working remotely and all social distancing, I'm getting to build relationships with external parties through video conferencing in a way that I wouldn't have been able to replicate over just a faceless telephone call. Especially, first contacts when you're approaching an organization or someone for the first time. The ability to sort of establish rapport in that first call with all the non-verbal cues on display in a video conference, I think is incredibly powerful and valuable. So obviously we've been talking a lot about how the current situation has affected us as a team and how we work, and it's sort of got us reviewing our process of collaboration internally. Obviously it's had a very big impact upon what it is we as a team do, which is putting on conferences for people. Now, we had been planning to do a conference just outside London in Windsor at the end of Industrial Data Summit, which would have been the third year in a row for that conference. But we've actually pivoted and we are delivering that as a completely online experience, and it's something we're quite excited about. So Ashley, I know that you've obviously been helping put together this agenda and managing its transition from a physical face-to-face event to a virtual event. But do you want to tell us a little bit about who you've got involved as speakers, so some of the topics, but also the feedback you've been getting from the speakers about doing this event digitally as opposed to delaying it to some point in the distant future?
Yes, thanks, James. Yes, I mean, starting with the last point, I think that's very important to mention how positive the response has been from everyone involved in the event. To begin with, I wasn't sure whether or not some of the speakers would go along with the virtual event, but there's been 100% positive confirmations. Everyone that was involved in the physical confirmed to lead a discussion or speak, or panelists in the event have all confirmed their support for the event. They're all going to be involved, which is very, very positive. In addition to that, we've had a fantastic response from delegates. We now have over 100 manufacturers registered to attend the digital event on the 30th of April. So it's going to be a fantastic event. And as I say, at the manufacturer, we're obviously overwhelmed with the response. Really, it's been as I say, very positive. The Industrial Data Summit's been going. This is now its third year as a physical event. So following up from that, data. It's very clear from my research. I work on right across the board on our events, putting the programs together. So our Manufacturer Leaders Summit, our Innovation Summit, our Supply Chain Summit, Growth Summit, our European Manufacturing Summit, and data, it always comes up as a major, a critical importance to manufacturers, getting their head round how to collect the data, how to analyze the data, and how to manage it. So we'll be essentially focusing on the data analytics and management, not so much on the collection of the data. As we did at last year's event, we're focusing now on using that data, how to analyze the data, how to get the best out of that data once it's been collected. Just to sort of give a bit of an explanation as well as how we're going to run the event, which is obviously critically important. At the normal physical event, during the course of the day, we have 5 30-minute roundtable discussions, which will all have one or two hosts, and the delegates choose which topic they want to sit at. It's a very successful formula. They sit down and they're able to share with the discussion leader and with their peers their challenges they're facing, where they are on the journey, etc., etc. We couldn't obviously use that same format for a virtual event, so we've actually changed it over to discussion rooms. So it's the same sort of format, but so during the course of the day, we're going to have 3 40-minute discussion sessions. So delegates who are registering will have the opportunity to select which of those, in each discussion. So we have 3, just to clarify, we have 3 discussion room sessions, so 40 minutes length, and then each discussion session of 40 minutes has 3 discussion rooms. So to give you an example, on session 1, which will be at 11:50, the delegates will have the opportunity to choose data collection strategy, product information management, and data quality and integrity. And once they've chosen that subject, they'll be able to join that particular discussion, and will also be given the opportunity to forward questions that they have on that topic before the event, and we'll also have the opportunity to ask questions live during the discussion. And how the session will work, the discussion leaders will introduce themselves, the topic, the subject, talk a little bit about their background, and then there will be a 20-minute session of audience, the questions that have been pre-prepared from the delegates, and then live questions. So an open discussion on that subject, very similar to the roundtable physical format, where they'll be able to share the challenges and that they're facing, and obviously get input from everyone in that discussion room. So say 3 sessions, discussion sessions. The next session, we're looking at IoT and sensors, data integration and monetizing your data. And then on the final session, we'll be looking at predictive maintenance, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and business intelligence. So those 9 topics came up in our research as being the key topics that manufacturers wanted to discuss. We reached out to over 40 manufacturers during the course of the last 6 months to clarify what are the key topics and issues that they would like to discuss. We have a keynote from Steve Pawlowski from GE Digital, talking about data at the edge, and a Q&A from the audience for 5 minutes. Then we go into another keynote, AI in manufacturing. Bala Amavasi, who is the head of AI and lead AI architect at Stanley Black & Decker. Then another 5 minutes Q&A, and then at 11:20 we have a 5-minute idea, AI opportunity in smart factory. Alison McGurk, who's head of architecture, data and intelligence at AstraZeneca. Then we have a Q&A for 5 minutes. Then we have a 10-minute break. Then we start the first discussion session 1, 11:50. Then discussion 2, 12:35. Then we break for lunch for 30 minutes. We have a keynote from Equinix at 1:45, a Q&A for 5 minutes. Then we go into panel discussion. We're looking at organizational culture and buy-in for data strategy. We have Gerard Bartley, the Global Master Data Manager from Jacobs Douwe Egberts, will also be chairing the day. Keith Roberts, Global Parts Operations Data and Reporting Manager from Jaguar Land Rover. Julia Van Massel, Global Head of Inventory Management at ThyssenKrupp Aerospace. That's a 25-minute session. And then we have a 2:30, a 5-minute idea. Data governance is about people, not IT, which would be Gerald Bartley from Jacobs Douwe Egberts. Q&A for 5 minutes. The final discussion room session at 11:40. We close at 3:20. Chairman's close, and we finish at 3:30. So that's the format of the day. We've got a very exciting program. As I said, we still have some places remaining if you'd like to join. So I'd recommend you go on to the website, on the manufacturers.com website, to find the Industrial Data Summit and register your interest. Thank you.
I think what's really exciting about the event is how we've been able to transfer across the undoubted success of our discussion table format of our physical events and sort of translate the benefits to delegates, but in an online setting, because we're able to pair up the manufacturing subject matter expert alongside often a sort of technology expert, and between the two of them, they get to host a conversation on also a key issue, but opening that up to the audience to ask questions. But also before the event, the process by which people register for a session allows them to see who else has registered for that session, and allows them to reach out to people and sort of try and form connections. So that sort of networking component of a conference, which I think is very, very important. I mean, people don't just go there to listen to presentations, they go there to meet people and to learn something new and build their professional networks. So I think we've been able to replicate that through the platform we use to register people. So certainly I'm interested to see how many of our delegates sort of fill out their profiles to make it easier for their fellow delegates to see whether there's value in striking up a conversation before the event. And that obviously allows for a lot more interaction and submission of questions in advance of the event. So certainly, I believe that the reason people are signing up in significant numbers for this conference, and I think that with over 100 delegates already registered, with still 2 weeks to go to the actual event, this is clearly going to be the best attended version of this event we've run, despite it being online. And perhaps that opens up the issue that maybe one of the reasons why it's so well attended is because it's online, and that reduces the barriers to access for many people. I mean, not everyone lives in the southeast of England, so an event being organised in Windsor now has much broader appeal. It's as easy for someone to log in from Paisley as it is from down south, or anywhere else in the country. And as a result of that, if people are genuinely engaged by the content that we've got lined up and interested in not just listening to the speakers but potentially networking with them, then obviously that's what this event now delivers. And I think that's been one of the things that was obvious. I mean, it was something that we hoped we'd see, but certainly it's been lovely to see that this first event that we're doing online as a full conference agenda delivered online. Obviously, it's a learning curve for us as a team, but certainly I'm looking forward to seeing about the quality of the interactions on the day. Bethany, what's your view of how it's been going from a marketer's perspective?
Well, I think it's all been very exciting, really. In terms of doing the marketing for it, having that sort of virtual feel to the event is something a bit different. Obviously, normally our sort of biggest conversation point is talking about the round table format and how that's sort of not typical of a lot of conferences. And obviously that's always been a big key feature, and that sort of key feature is almost like elevated in this virtual format. And like you say, the sort of people that we're attracting to it are from all around, because there is no restrictions. It doesn't matter that you don't want to have to travel however many hours to get there. Those sort of issues and pain points of trying to attend conferences is completely taken away. And it is, you could just get set up on your sofa, and plug in and just sit there for the day in the comfort of your own home. It's just so much more accessible. And I know that we've had like a lot of discussions about the sort of format and how that's going to be. And I think by it being virtual, it could be quite exciting because it is something different. And I'm sort of quite excited to see how the sort of outcome is going to look. Like you say, the opportunity to sort of connect beforehand, connect after, and sort of gain more value. The roundtable format brings a different point of value, and that is kind of elevated in a way that isn't sort of typical of conferences, because like you say, when you sort of think of most conferences, you think of sitting down and listening to presentations. This is essentially like a networking event where you go and gain value and content, sort of ticking all the boxes in terms of the best way you can gain something in this scenario where normally you'd sort of feel like you're not going to have a chance to meet new people in the manufacturing sector. And right now is a really good time to sort of hear what they're doing and what they've got to say, because this is a scenario where obviously it is always good to hear anyway people from different types of manufacturing and how they deal with problems. But now we're in a completely new realm of problems that you wouldn't necessarily know how to address. And by being able to speak to people on such a personal level, I think a lot of those sort of uncertainties everyone has, they're going to be able to sort of address it all in one day, from a sort of technical perspective and otherwise. So yeah, I think it's going to be very exciting, and I think it's wonderful timing when the event's being held, because I think everyone's sort of got to know with how the process is going to be, and obviously we're getting extensions on how long we're going to be in that situation. So now is kind of the right time, I think.
I mean, all I can say is I must have been very clever when I decided that this event should be done at the end of April. So I take full credit for the good timing, if not the unfortunate cause for the timing. But I think one of the issues is that there's going to be a minimum of 130 data-focused manufacturing executives involved in this event, if not more, on current trends of sign-ups. So having 130 people in a room together, ordinarily, you might speak to 20 or 30 of those over the course of a day. Because you have access to that room of 130 data-minded manufacturers before the event, and you're able to sort of reach out and sort of connect with people before the event, you're able, as a participant, to get a lot more out of the conference. And I think that actually it's important to think in terms of people being participants rather than delegates. If you say a delegate, that sort of conjures up sort of traditional vision of someone sat in a dark room looking at the stage and sort of digesting content through a series of PowerPoint presentations. Whereas if you start reimagining what it is to be involved in an online conference, and you start thinking of yourselves as a participant, you are as much a contributor as you are a consumer of content, and that what you might take for granted in terms of your own background and experience could be the penny dropping for someone else. And as they reach out to you, you make the difference for them, and obviously vice versa. So I think that there are certainly a lot of options which an online event presents all participants, whether they're speakers, panelists, or conventional delegates. I think that everyone stands a chance of getting a lot more out of the event. And the fact that we can squeeze so many content options into, as Ashley said, a sort of shorter day, starting at 10:30, ending around 3 o'clock. I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity to network with 130 other manufacturers on issues that are clearly, very, very important right now as manufacturers try to get a grip on how to sort of streamline their operations, but also get a much more accurate sense of, forecasting demand and planning and sort of visibility across their supply chains. All of these issues really come together at this event, and I think this event really sort of managed to squeeze a lot of those issues and a lot of those key executives into a very short space of time. And I believe that brings us close to the end of our hour. Ashley, are you still happy?
Yes, thank you, James. Very happy, and a great opportunity to share and reflect. So enjoyed it immensely, as always.
Great stuff. Bethany, how's it for you?
Yeah, it was good. It was fun. Obviously, I was sort of half involved in the podcast in the last episode. It's quite nice to have a significant feature in this one.
There we go. Yeah, you're dragged into the podcast halfway through, but I think you made it your own, and that's why you deserve a seat at the top table.
Thanks.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking about I suppose the very steep learning curve we've all been on in terms of getting to grips with the practical realities of working remotely, and then how that feeds into sort of the work that we do with manufacturers at our events. And certainly I'm really excited about seeing how Ashley's conference comes together on the 30th of April, Industrial Day Summit online. If you've not got your tickets, people, tickets still available. So go to, what's the website?
Industrial-data.uk.
Very good. Excellent. So anyway, on behalf of, I suppose myself only, thanks everyone for listening, and look forward to welcoming you to the conference if you can make it. And guys, do you want to say cheerio?
See ya.
Thank you, everyone. Take care and
Bye.
keep safe.
Manufacturer podcasts are sponsored by Sage, helping manufacturers perform at their best. For more information, visit sage.com/perform.